My name's Nate. You know the deal. This is the time when I rant and rave about shit that pisses me off. And tonight, I've got a word for the day. The word for today that's going to keep me on task to talk about the issue that I want to hit is impunity.
Impunity.
Let's see what impunity means. Impunity. Impunity. Let's just let the computer tell me. All right?
Exemption from punishment or freedom from the injurious consequences of an action.
All right, so the exemption from punishment or freedom from the injurious consequences of an action. Why does this word stand out today? Well, I've got several messages from folks that watch and viewers that pay attention about the impunity of an AG that's out in South Dakota who killed somebody, ran them over, then got a fine and no jail time for death. He's probably going to run again. I mean, it's fucking that crazy. And why is that important? He's a Republican. He had a Republican legislature. This word sticks out. And as soon as I read this story and I saw these other stories talking about this impunity that we have right now for elected officials, it started to piss me off. And then, of course, you know who comes up. Of course. Who comes up when you think of never has to face any consequences? Donald fucking Trump. You know, and I go through and I'm like, all right, let's try to figure this out. So if I have no kids, I'm just assuming that if you tell your kid or a child or my dog or somebody that is in a role that you may have authority over for whatever reason, and you tell them not to do something and they do it, and you don't bring any punishment. Let's say your toddler, you know, takes a dump and they take the shit and they throw it on the wall. And you just say, oh, Billy, no big deal. You know, and every time Billy does it, he thinks it's funny because you just say no big deal. There's no screaming. There's no yelling. There's just, oh, Billy, you're silly. There's no punishment. There's no, hey, you didn't do that. Just, you know, you threw poop on the wall, Billy. And Billy just, you know, at a young age learns that, you know what, he can pretty much do it at whatever he wants. He throws shit on the wall. And mommy and daddy just kind of say, hey, Billy, you know what? You just shouldn't do that. And of course, I'm not saying that you have to yell at your kids. My point is there's no punishment in this hypothetical situation, okay? And so how do you think Billy grows up? How do you think Billy is going to react to anybody that that has an authority position over him, maybe a teacher or, you know, possibly a boss in their future? You know, they're just going to learn at a young age that adults don't mean business. They're going to learn that, you know, when somebody in authority says not to do something, it really doesn't mean anything. So they're going to continue to do it. Why am I using that fucked up example about Billy throwing shit on the wall? Because it feels like we're in this age where if you become an elected official, you are impunitized, if that's a word. You know, you just get to experience the impunity that you and I don't have. And so this South Dakota AG got fines for apparently running over somebody. He pleaded no contest to charges of making an illegal lane change and using a phone while driving, which carries a sentence up to 30 days in jail and a fine up to $500. He had been charged with 3 misdemeanors, but prosecutors dropped a careless driving charge as part of the deal. This is after he struck and killed a man who was walking along a rural highway. You know, it's in South Dakota, right? Who the fuck gives a fuck about South Dakota? But there's a pattern here, and the reason why these stories make news is because it's so fucking foreign to you and me that it has to be news. I mean, this gentleman killed somebody, gets off with nothing but a fine. Who knows whether he was drinking or not? He didn't even have to attend the hearing. He didn't have to and was represented by his attorney. So, you know, essentially this guy who's the AG of Attorney General, you know, who, you know, is essentially the top law enforcement personnel in the state, doesn't even have to show up for his hearing. You know, why after having to wait nearly a year do we not have the chance to face him, says Bover's sister, Jane Bover. She asked the court. So this is her sister who's there. The gentleman's sister is there waiting for this person to show up. He doesn't have to show up. Again, you're like, Nate, I don't give a fuck about South Dakota. What the fuck you talking about South Dakota for? Well, I mean, this is a pattern that we see, and I can't believe nobody's screaming about this more, about the fact that these people never get convicted. You have to either basically be a serial child pedophile. And it used to be that if you killed somebody, maybe you'd face consequences. But I think that's really the only thing that you could do to actually incur the wrath of the people in Congress if you're in power, is to, diddle kids. And apparently that may or may not even be the case, because depending on who you know, you may be able to hide even that. I mean, the church has done it for years. So depending how you're connected and how you're diddling and how you're fucking finding these creepy places to do these things, you might not even get convicted. No one might even, you may even be sheltered from folks that are in it with you. And so, I didn't really want to talk about like this in just because of all the things that are going on with inflation, and there's a lot of bills that are there's some good things that are happening. Biden's actually opening up some of the reserves to try to fuck with the oil companies and bring down our oil, which is a good thing. I still think he's going to die in office, but I could have talked about other things. But this word just stuck out to me because of the fact that we have on top of all this, we have the former president of the United States who was impeached twice, once for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, and then the second time essentially was citing an insurrection. And Nancy Pelosi actually went to Mike Pence and said, "You need to invoke the 25th Amendment, or we're going to impeach him again." Mike Pence said, "Fuck it." Of course, Mike Pence almost lost his fucking head that day because they came in ready to hang him. But that wasn't enough for him, and he decided, to just say whatever. So Trump's out there throwing poop on the wall, and, he threw poop on the wall for 3 years. Everyone knew he was doing dumb shit. People that worked with him, his chief of staff left the office saying, "Hey, this guy's a criminal. He's not doing the right things." I had to stay in power. I had to stay in my position to make sure that the president of the United States didn't do the wrong thing. He said, I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially what his chief of staff was saying to everybody after, of course, they left, because nobody would thwart Trump while he's in. I don't know why I'm stuttering, and I don't know why my eyes twitching. Maybe I'm having like one of those on-screen strokes. So maybe I just keep rolling to see how so the doctor can see something to document. No, I don't know. My eyes twitching and red fox, jump red fox, and I'm stuttering, and I'm not nervous, but I want to get back to the point. Impunity. So if you don't know, I read the definition. It just means that you're essentially kind of you're able to avoid any penalty or consequences, and it doesn't matter how injurious that action might be to somebody. You are essentially kind of given a scot-free get out of jail free pass. And so the problem with that with our elected officials, and I was looking at videos earlier today of one of the times, trying to find a video where I talked about the 3 things we needed when Biden came into office, and one of them was accountability. And we don't have that accountability if we continue to let these folks who we elected fuck up. I don't know any other job where you can kill somebody, you can get impeached, you can essentially get ousted by your colleagues, and then actually have the ability to come back and run the company again. It's just mind-blowing. But that's what we're dealing with. And if you don't know, and if you're kind of sitting in a cave, or you're one of those folks that really truly believes that Donald Trump is a good president, who was impeached twice, who incited an insurrection that essentially brought folks in that were crazy enough to bring twisty ties and put a gallows out front. I mean, this is some fucking shit, people. This is some fucking shit. People want to minimize that insurrection. We've got Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger on that committee investigating this. Jared Kushner came in and said some shit. I don't know what he said, but it's starting to crack open that if they're going to allow this Trump to go scot-free for some of the things that he did from that second impeachment, I can't imagine that if he gets a second term, he's going to learn anything. I mean, this is Billy throwing poop on everybody and essentially you guys are going to elect him again. The fact that he's even in the conversation amazes me. And you know why it's crazy? So we're in a war, right? I mean, we're not in a war. We're helping support the Ukrainian war against Russia because Russia, invaded a sovereign country, which means they crossed a border they weren't supposed to and go into an area that wasn't theirs, and they're claiming it was because of old history and some other maybe big dick moves by little Lilliputian Putin, that little fuckstick. So they're doing that, and meanwhile, Trump, who again has never been penalized for anything he's done, he's kind of, flew above the radar for some reason without ever getting consequences for having any consequence. The only consequence he really faced was he didn't get reelected. But he's out there playing golf, having his best days, putting out statements. In fact, he put out a statement suggesting, again, asking a foreign adversary to dig up dirt on Biden. And of course, guess what? Russia is obliging him. So right now there's an information war that's being kind of funneled out into the ether from Russia, coming from the Kremlin. They're putting that disinfo out there just through subtle ads and subtle psychological, technologically and psychologically, I can't even say it. Technology, psychologically. I don't even know what, maybe it's because I got to work tomorrow and I'm nervous about my first day, but I'm like, blah, 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 blah. So the point is, Vladimir Putin obliged him and put that information using the same channels that he used before. And so, we have this president, this former president, who's out there kind of running around without impunity, doing crazy shit, reaching out to the folks that we're at war with, asking them to support his political future by digging up dirt for Biden. This is the same thing he did for Ukraine. He withheld aid from Ukraine until they were able to generate some disinformation that would help him get reelected. I mean, I don't know how much clearer I don't know what scenario you would need to see if you're a Trump supporter to make you say, you know what, that's not the guy. I would love to have a Trump supporter write me or put a message in. I will not attack you. I just want to hear what your scenario is that would make you vote for a Democrat or a libertarian like you always do, whatever it is. If you're a Trump supporter and you see all this stuff and you have this hatred towards politicians, and then you see your politician get away with essentially creating scenarios where people are dying, he's asking our adversaries for help, why doesn't that change your mind? What is it that's holding you to this guy? Is it your insecurity? Is it your fear of what America is going to become if we don't have somebody like Donald Trump in office? One of the conversations I had recently was with a Republican was that they want somebody, a strong woman or a strong man that rises above the politics, that talks above the fray. And I'm like, what the fuck does that even mean? It's what I tried to boil it down for this person was that you really just want a strongman person, and I don't think that you've thought out what that means. You really want an autocrat. You really want a dictator. You want somebody who has ultimate power in America. That's not how America was built. We're not built to have some strong person that's able to just force their will on the country, and it happens. There's a collaborative effort between the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and the executive branch, and that's kind of how it works. You don't want to have, you're supposed to have a balance of powers there, but it seems to me that when a Democrat is in office, then Republicans will scream that the executive branch has too much power. When a Republican is in office, they're going to get behind them, marching lockstep behind him, doing whatever it takes. And this weird infatuation with this strong man also kind of, I think, puts a malaise over anything they can see, any kind of egregious move or mistake this person might make. They just kind of just blow it off as, you know what, he's just human. Oh, he's just saying words. And so they're always coming up with excuses on how they can justify their support for this person. And so, I'm looking, I kind of went through the two impeachments of Donald Trump, and I'm just like, of course, if he gets elected, we're all the historians and all the people that study this stuff and all the experts that you don't want to hear from because for some reason you don't believe in experts anymore. These people are saying, based on historical, evidence and things that happen in history, if this person gets elected again, it's going to be a detriment to our democracy. Now, I don't know if that's definitely a bad thing for some people. It seems that they don't want to have certain people to vote. It seems that the Republican Party has designed itself around the idea that since their agenda and their ideas are kind of falling flat and they know they're in the minority and they know the country's demographic is changing, that they're doing everything they can to make sure that when the next Republican president gets in, that person will get in through preventing other people from voting, holding back legitimate voters, creating fear, uncertainty, doubt around things that don't happen or don't exist. For instance, right now in Arizona, they just passed a law that says you have to prove your citizenship when you vote. Now, everyone, you start to go, well, that's, of course that seems obvious, right? Well, the problem is that law was generated from fear. It came from the fact that, Donald Trump has been pitching that foreigners are voting in elections. It's just absolutely false. There has not been any evidence of it, but these laws are being created out of fear. And what's so mind-boggling behind all that is that this is the party of personal responsibility. This is the party that says, hey, government should stay out of your lives, except when it comes to voting, then government needs to know every single fucking thing about you. You need to validate who you are and what you are. When we've had the controls in how to operate elections since the beginning. I'm not suggesting that there's no voter fraud. I'm just suggesting that it's so minuscule that it hasn't ever affected the outcome of a race, except apparently when a Democrat wins, which is odd. But all the stuff that I'm talking about comes from this person who has never had to pay a consequence. And so when I talked about this several months ago, I tried to talk about the fact that we need the press to get their shit together, and we needed a press that would actually report on the truth and not be sensationalizing every single story. And of course, it's very difficult when you're working with a Gatling gun of scandals like Donald Trump. And then I also said we needed accountability. And accountability means that the folks that fucked up, the folks that did us wrong, the folks that violated the law, they are served some kind of consequence. And it doesn't appear to be that way. Mick Mulvaney, who was another chief of staff for Donald Trump, has now just signed on with CBS News. This is the person who claimed that the press was fake, and everything that you hear from the press, you should just ignore, and it doesn't mean anything. Just take our word for it. So now CBS has actually put this person on their payroll to be a contributor because they're betting that the Republicans are going to take back the House and the Senate, and they want to have that Republican angle. To me, this isn't a Republican angle. This is a propagandist angle. And so they've decided to hire somebody from the Trump administration, again, coming from this leader. It always starts at the top. If a leader has no morals, then everybody else is going to realize that really quickly they can get away with anything. There's no impunity. They have impunity. And so there's no consequences for anything to do. Of course, my nose is going to start itching when I'm fucking on live. Damn it. Somebody's talking about me? Yes, I'm awesome. All right. So, this word impunity has all these consequences. That's kind of funny. Impunity has consequences. The word means that you're you're devoid of consequences despite how injurious they may be. But the word, just by having that impunity and putting that around our elected officials' neck, essentially it's creating other consequences. And one of the consequences that we're going to have to deal with is Donald Trump could possibly be on the ballot again. And that makes no sense to me. Somebody who was impeached twice, perhaps there should be a law that says if you're impeached, you can't run again. Something. But it's not the case. And so, despite the fact that he was impeached and he wasn't removed, apparently he can still be on the ballot. Apparently, when you lie, you cheat, you steal, you corrupt the government, and you do everything you can to thwart the democratic process, it appears that there's no consequence. And so I can't imagine that if Donald Trump gets elected, it would be a good thing. I don't see how it would be. I just don't even understand how the folks that support him see it as a good thing. If they really understand and get how democracy rules, or runs, if they're one of those folks that just wants to see the liberals freak out, they're going to see the liberals freak out when Donald Trump wins the office, because it's going to be bad for everybody. And by the way, the reason why liberals freak out is because they actually care about everybody, and they realize that we're going to lose our democracy if we continue to cater to folks that have impunity from consequence. And so, the AG is just one example, and you could find tons of examples of folks making deals. I will say, yours truly, I talked about the slap, and I'm not pro-violence, but I will say when I was young, there's no but, I'm not pro-violence. But when I was younger, in my 30s, which isn't terribly long ago, I got into an altercation, and I'll describe the altercation as, I thought the bouncer was throwing I watched the bouncer throw my friend down the steps, and then I thought he was going to throw me down the steps. And so I punched him, and I had a key in my hand, and I knew I had a key in my hand, unfortunately. And, I wanted to hurt him. And so I did that, and I paid consequences for it. I'm not saying that to be tough. I'm not saying that to be proud. I'm saying I paid a consequence for it. And, I had to, it was embarrassing. Essentially, I couldn't go into any bars around town for a while because every bouncer knew what happened, and they were like, fuck you, Nate. And so, I paid a hard price for it. I eventually reconciled with just about every bouncer that was in that incident, and reconciled with a lot of folks that were involved. I don't know if I've ever seen the gentleman that I punched, but I could have seriously injured him. My point is, I paid a price. And it was it's a stain. It's not expunged. You can probably Google it. I think I ended up getting ARD, which is an interesting kind of, when I wrote the letter to the current AG, it was Craig Stedman. He was like, wow, you have a lot of connections, because I had worked for a politician at the time. And so I said, hey, here's some references. I grew up here, and I tried to make myself look as good as possible. And I got ARD, and I was lucky. I was so fortunate, which means that essentially, it's something that can be expunged. I never expunged it because whatever. It sucks, and it was a horrible thing, and I'm definitely not proud of it. But I paid a price, and I did all this community service, and I had to pay all these fines. I had to pay restitution, and it's on my record. It sucks. But again, I'm just kind of an average citizen that punched somebody in the face. Again, not suggesting it's okay. My point of all this is that most people, when they do something stupid like I did, they're going to pay a price. Now, when you incite an insurrection that could potentially overturn an election in a democracy, in the greatest democracy apparently that's ever existed, or whatever kind of other hyperbole you want to call it, you would think that there would be some consequences. But here, Donald Trump is out there running around free. Of course, he didn't punch somebody. He didn't slap somebody. We know how people feel about violence, and especially when it's on TV. People are going apeshit. Will Smith should be fucking canceled and taking his stuff. But Donald Trump has 70 million people that are ready to vote for him. There's no impunity. He's done nothing wrong, and I guess his supporters will argue that it was all political when it wasn't. When it was a bipartisan, impeachment the second time. It was the first time that it was unanimous, where the majority party unanimously voted him out, and so there's so much evidence. There's an entire special committee that was created to investigate this just because of how bad it is, and they're starting to unravel all these things. There's 7 hours of missing voice, phone logs, and there's some reasonable explanations for some of that, but the point is, there's a lot. He's been known to eat paperwork that he didn't want anyone to see. They shredded paperwork they didn't want anyone to see. They were using personal phones. They were using personal apps. They were doing all this stuff. These are the people that we elected. And now all of a sudden, Mick Mulvaney is now going to have a pretty prime spot on CBS to make sure that he's pitching the Republican talking points throughout the next 4 years, or however long Republicans will have control over the House and Senate. hypothetically. And then you have Donald Trump, who everyone's talking about as the forerunner to be on the presidential ballot in 2024, like as if nothing happened. And I can't imagine that Will Smith, could certainly, run with impunity after smacking somebody on TV. I think that would be a stain, and people would, ask him about his anger and all kinds of shit. But when you incite an insurrection and you get impeached twice, or you run over a pedestrian, depending on who you are, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. And so I think right now, based on what I said before, we're failing. I don't know what Merrick Garland is doing. Apparently he did hire, 131 new attorneys to investigate all kinds of shit that the Trump administration was doing. Whether or not that's going to come to fruition, I put all my cards on the Mueller report, and I read it. And so when you read the Mueller report, it's easy to see that he should have been impeached. But again, most Republicans didn't read it, which is mind-blowing. Had they read that, they probably would have known what would have been coming down the pike, had they not raised any consequence. There was no censure. There was nothing. And so Donald Trump surrounded him with sycophants. His party has become one big giant lip that wraps around his dick, and they do nothing but blow this guy all the time. And I apologize about that reference, but there's no other way to suggest, to explain how somebody goes from Lindsey Graham saying he's the worst person in the world, Ted Cruz going to, basically getting called a punk ass bitch, and his wife is ugly, and just kind of, then all of a sudden, as soon as he's in power, them just kind of sucking on that teat like they're the fucking kids of a goat. I mean, it's insane. But the reason I think all this is happening is because we have a party that's going to continue to lift him up no matter what, because they're scared of the fact that that's the only way they can hold their coalition together, is to have, the hero and then the them. And so that's their only play. There's no agenda. There's no repeal and replace. They're going to argue about the abortion issues. That's why they're passing all these legislation. They're going to argue about voter registration. And so those are going to be the big things that are going to motivate their base. And so I'm speaking to that base right now. What makes you think that anything that you're doing is going to stop the demographic of this country from changing? Nothing. Nothing short of lynching people, nothing short of jailing people, nothing short of some kind of apartheid shit. This country's going to be fucking light brown in 200 years, whether you like it or not. Most of the people in this country are going to be of color. Most of the ideas that you hold sacred, like, paying high healthcare prices and kind of expanding the equity gap, those things are going to be here, and they're not going to be good for you. And so those are the things that your party's fighting for. And so I wonder, what would it take for you to kind of look at the party or look at Donald Trump and say, you know what, that's a bad person. It's not going to be inciting an erection, because it's not going to be inciting insurrection. It doesn't seem like that moved the needle at all. And so, I'm wondering if, to me, it seems like the only way to fix this right now is to bring down the fucking hammer on these people. Enough of the impunity. CBS should say, fuck that. We're going to go hire some young black journalist or some, Latino journalist to fill in that spot that can talk, that understands the political scene. Why do you need a GOP kind of spokesperson on the news as a contributor? It doesn't make sense. Go interview him. Don't put him on there as a voice, because a lot of people are going to look at that and say, all right, this is coming from the news. This must be something I need to listen to, when he's going to be spouting one party's perspective. And so I don't care if it's a Democrat in office. There's no reason a Democratic operative should be a full-time contributor to a journalistic, any kind of mainstream journalistic outlet. It just doesn't make sense. But again, we're dealing with folks that have never had any consequences. There's impunity for everybody. And until we decide that we really want to keep this democracy, I think we're going to keep fucking up, because we're going to keep letting these guys get away with this shit. And it's interesting, because, when you think about some of the conspiracy theories that were popping around, remember when I said, I think the only thing you could do is maybe, get caught molesting children. And it seems like all the conspiracy theories that were coming out of the right, where, Joe Biden and the Democrats and Hillary have this whole large large-scale child trafficking thing going on. And so they were trying to really go for with gusto, they were trying to go for that point of making their opponent look like a molester. And that's what, the fringes of the party understand that how detrimental that is to a career politician. And so that's why the center of the, kind of the mainstream Republicans weren't really doing a whole lot to thwart any of that stuff. In fact, they were, feeding the frenzy by suggesting that we needed to watch out for foreigners and the border's a problem. And there's actually stories that link it to child trafficking, which is true in some cases. But my hunch is that child trafficking and the people that are actually trafficking human beings for sex are really, really fucking rich. I don't think that, when you're maybe there's Saudi princes or something, some bullshit. But I think that this, again, I don't know anything about it, but it just seems like something that would take a lot of work. As somebody who kind of worked in the black market for a long time and doing shady shit when I was in my early 20s, to come across somebody that was dealing in people, I mean, that's some high-level shit. That's some risky shit. There's a lot of risk. Maybe there's a lot of reward, but I just don't see that being something that, a lot of folks around here or you and I are going to be contributing to if that's your thing, because it's expensive. It would seem to be something that would be difficult to hide. Again, you can take this video and splice it up and make me look like I know something about human trafficking. I don't. But my point is that by throwing that onto a politician and painting him that way, you kind of go for that core thing that will fuck anybody's world up. You find out somebody's a child molester, immediately you look at them differently. They're fucking, ostracized by their colleagues. And so if you can get the public to believe that there's child molesters in the other party, of course that's going to make them, that's going to make their hate for them even more. And it's also going to motivate them, because we know fear and anger are motivators. And so, but I just don't, as I think about like kind of watching in slow motion as democracy's eroded, it doesn't matter that Joe Biden's president. It doesn't matter that we have a Democratic majority. We don't have a government that's actually going after the folks that are fucking us. Even the departments that are supposed to look after, the SEC or after Wall Street, like the SEC, or any kind of department that's looking at, some kind of supposed to be a regulatory department. We know that they're filled with folks that are coming from that industry, and so they're not well regulated. Again, it's impunity. There's no consequence. There's no consequence for injurious action. And so think about the whole big 2008, the Great Recession. What kind of punishment do you think Wall Street felt? I think what they did is they said, you know what, guys, this is bad. We need to get money from the government. Oh, yeah, Bernie, he's doing some fucked up shit. Yeah, we've known it for years, but let's throw him in the wolves. And so we got our Bernie, we got our the face of the fucking, the whole 2008 bullshit, which he wasn't even really related to that. He was doing a Ponzi scheme that was completely different than why we were all paying for this whole shift in kind of risk from Wall Street to government. And then we ended up paying for it through the TARP and everything else. But my larger point is this word impunity and what it means for the future of our country. And I'm not trying to wax poetic and sound real intelligent. I just think it's, when I went back to those videos, I remember I remember saying, like, these are the three things. And, two of them are fucked up. We're going to put Mick Mulvaney into a core, into one of the outlets that's a mainstream media outlet, and he's just going to be spouting nonsense. And so that to me is a loss. That's one leg of the stool that's broken. And then you have all these public officials that were part of the insurrection. You now have information coming out about Clarence Thomas and his wife, Duty, or whatever the fuck her name is. What's her fucking name? I mean, Clarence Thomas has fucking always been on my fucking nerves. What's her name? Ginny. They call her Ginny, right? Ginny was essentially working with Mark Meadows and funding the insurrection. So this was all part of a plot. We have a lot of folks involved in this. There's a lot of powerful people. And guess what? There's no consequences for them.
Clarence Thomas has stated he's not going to recuse himself from any of the court cases that are looking at the insurrection because his wife was funding it. He may have stepped out of the courtroom for the cases that his son were bringing to the court, but for Ginny, he's not going to do it. He said as much, and so there's no impunity for Ginny and her kind of backdoor dealings with the insurrectionists. There's no penalty for Mark Meadows for lying. There's no penalty for the obfuscation and hiding of all the phone records. There's no penalty for Donald Trump, who was fucking impeached twice. There's no penalty. And so what happens? Remember the story I told you in the beginning with little Billy who's taking a shit and then decides to throw his shit all over the wall? The wall is like us. That's our country. And so you're going to put these people back into power after doing this shit. You have to at least demand, this was the party that was like, lock her up. For what? They couldn't do it. For emails, Christ almighty, what was Ivanka and Jared and the president doing using, burner phones and all kinds of crazy shit? There's no calls from the left to lock them up, although there are calls from the left to investigate and what's the fucking word? Man, my brain is fucking weird. Prosecute. There's calls to prosecute these folks, but it's not like they're chanting it at fucking rallies at this point yet, but they should be, because these are kind of obvious errors. I mean, Ivanka Trump left the office, I think, making $640 million during her time there, using it to make money and make deals in China. Nobody cares. Nobody cares on the right. Again, I'm not saying nobody, but I feel like there's no consequences for all these folks that are robbing us blind, and they're doing the things that they're doing and causing issues. I mean, again, remember the other night when I was talking about layered consequences? These are all things that are popping up from the fucking shitstorm that we had that was Donald Trump. And so my only point I wanted to make tonight, really, because I am a little nervous about going back to work tomorrow. It's just been a while it's been like 12 years since I worked for, maybe 13 years since I've worked for somebody, like an employer. So it's kind of weird. But I'm excited. I'm excited as hell. I've just punched myself. I'm excited as hell, but I'm nervous. And so maybe that's why I'm stuttering. But I can't believe I just punched myself with my mic. That's awesome. I got to watch that in slow motion. I literally went, ooh. Anyway, so back to the word. So, I think one of the things I would love to see happen is I would like to see Congress get off their ass and start looking at things through like reality lenses instead of the lenses that are covered in red or they're covered in blue or whatever, and actually look at the facts. More people like Adam Kinzinger, more people, I can't believe I'm saying this, like Liz Cheney, who no matter even despite the fact that she has different beliefs than me, the fact that she went on that committee and stuck by the truth, so much respect for Adam Kinzinger. What was it? There was another guy who had to, Justin Amash. He had to resign because he was also one of those folks that was like, look, this is crazy. The group thinks too strong here. I got to get out of here. But really, what it comes down to is the Republican Party is never going to punish itself. It just won't do it. They have. They just got a little pissed off because little Cawthorn, the guy that's in the wheelchair, made a claim that there's cocaine and there's orgies, and then McCarthy comes back and says, he doesn't even know what cocaine is. Come on, motherfucker. He said a key bump. If you know anything about coke, a key bump is like, you know what cocaine is if you're calling it a key bump. He didn't just pull that out of his ass. If I said that to somebody who never did coke, they wouldn't even know what the fuck I'm talking about. In fact, most people don't even know what a key bump is if you've never done coke. So, he used that language. He knows what the fuck coke is. But again, McCarthy is trying to make it so that his party doesn't have to pay any consequence. They're telling him that now he's ostracized because he broke ranks. The people that break ranks in the Republican Party, to me, I feel like are the biggest truth tellers that party has. You look at anybody that's broke rank in that party, they end up being ostracized and kind of made fun of or ridiculed. Donald Trump says, hey, look at them. They're a Democrat. Is my shit going to die? Yeah, I did it again. Hold on a second. My battery. mess. All right, hold on. How am I doing on time? Oh, I went long again. Damn it. I can't do a half hour. I just like to talk too much. Impunity, that's the word. We need our elected officials to suffer consequences just like I did, just like that you would. And another thing I was talking about when I was talking about this with one of the people that were in my inbox is that, you know, if you look at how fines are doled out, fines are really for poor people. Because if you're rich, you know, what's a fine? And so, like, if I get a speeding ticket, I'm loaded. I don't give a shit. Fuck it. Okay, take my license. I'll have a driver. You know what I mean? But in, I think it's Norway or in Denmark, one of those countries, if you get a speeding ticket, that goes by your net worth. So you could actually do, you know, let's say you're doing 55 and a 40, and I run that speeding ticket, it might be $200. If you're Donald Trump, or let's say not Donald Trump, because who knows what the fuck he's worth. Let's say if you're Jeff Bezos, you might pay $85,000. And so they essentially kind of scale it up to make sure that you feel some pain no matter what. That's the kind of justice system we need, not one that says, hey, look, if you're poor, you're fucked. And if you're rich, you're left go. But since we have our justice system built on this idea that, you know, once you get to a certain level, the rules don't apply, it's now affecting how this democracy is going to shape. It's going to affect how we're going to perceive our democracy in the future, because people are going to have less faith in democracy because of the fact that they know there's no consequences. And so the goal to me would be run for office, get into office, and then kind of be above the law. And I know that sounds, you know, that's pretty cliche, and we've known that for a long time, but it really is becoming so apparent that this is going to be another one of those things that's going to slowly erode everyone's trust in the government, everyone's trust in elected officials, and one party is going to use that to their advantage, and they're going to use that to create fear in everybody else. And meanwhile, its supporters are going to continue to support this impunity that they have. And so if you're a Donald Trump supporter and you don't see, if you haven't thought past just pissing off Nate or owning the liberals when you're making your vote, start looking at the folks you're voting for. Start looking at their fucking, you know, you guys claim to be the family of party value, or, you know, family values, yet you continue to have people in your party doing crazy shit. I truly believe there's fucking sex-filled, you know, cocaine-fueled orgies. Christ, there's fucking cocaine-fueled orgies around here. Why the fuck wouldn't they be in D.C.? I mean, it's just, to me, it's like, of course there is. Of course. You're talking about rich people. You're talking about famous people. You're talking about money. You're talking about power. Of course cocaine's involved. Of course sex is involved. You know, every dude in the fucking, that you know, that lived a life at some point knows that, you know, ultimately that's what's on dudes' brains, sex. You know, let's have more sex. Cocaine makes you have more sex. So you get to a power where there's no consequence and no one's ever told you no. You feel like you can do whatever you want. And so I truly believe it. And so there's no consequences in D.C., and that's going to cost you and me this country. I kid you not. Watch. We're already kind of losing faith in the press, and you're having to come to me for information, for Christ's sake. And that's a very sad fucking you know, turn of events. And so, you know, this is one of those things where there's no quick fix other than to kind of hope and cross your fingers that the Department of Justice will start to bring these people to justice, and, you know, voters will start to see, look, man, we got to. I don't need a purity test. I don't give a fuck that they're having sex-filled orgies. I don't care about that. As long as they're legislating and doing their job, I could give a fuck. I truly could give a fuck about what someone's doing outside of their responsibilities of whatever their job is. I don't care. If they're performing at a high level, and you know, there's no drug testing, so they're not doing anything illegal, I don't care. I don't care what you do. But what I do care about is when you violate the public's trust and there's no consequences for that. And that's why the word impunity was important to me. I figured I'd talk about it. Look, I'm going to wrap with that. I've got a big day tomorrow with my first day. Holla at me. Where's my little sound effects? Hold on. Oh, you can't hear it. You can't hear that, can you? You can't. Shit. Oh, all right. Oh, no. Now you can. Anyway, I'm really bad today. All right, tomorrow I'll be back on Monday, I promise, and I will hopefully be able to talk without stuttering. I don't know what it is today, but I was just kind of like, meh. But I will say a lot of good things happening. I didn't get to check out the new studio yet. That's at my co-working spot. It's not my studio. It's a studio that's available to me during business hours, and I want to check it out and see if we can use that. But I also have a couple folks that are willing to come on for an interview, so that's going to be interesting. You know, I'm kind of trying to open it up here. The year of experimentation we're calling 2022. 2023 is going to be fucking fire, but 2022 is the year of experimentation. So I've got a couple ideas brewing and talking to some folks that are like have some real street cred in the community service kind of world, and you know, kind of that's where our angle is. We want to talk about how we can help folks that don't have a voice, and so that's the whole end game of Smashing the Party. You know, I can bitch and complain. It's also therapeutic, but the bottom line, ultimately, the point is to figure out how to change hearts and minds. We can have a better country and save this motherfucker from these crazy people that are running it right now. So I'll be back on Monday. I think it's week 3. It might be week 4. I think it's week 3. I'll have to check. But, you know, I do 4 weeks on, and then I take a week off for my mental health. And then I do 4 weeks on, I take a week off. So I think next week is week 3. So I'll be back on Monday at 10:30 no matter what. Tomorrow's my first day, so I'm going to kind of lay out the land. I will definitely be continuing to bring the noise throughout this job. Again, my ultimate goal was to continue this and to get money and basically build an organization around this. And so, you know, I am thrilled about having a job and I'm excited about doing it, but I will say that job is a means to how to build this organization. I'm not Ben Shapiro. He's done a fantastic job building like probably a $500 million company around him spewing nonsense, him acting as if he has some kind of, he's the intelligentsia, as he likes to call himself, of the Republican Party, the future of the Republican Party. And I've watched him over and over and over saying, what the fuck is going on with this world? I'm not saying I'm better at talking than him. I'm not saying that he's obviously brilliant. He's written books. He's well published. He's well known. But every time I see him, it gets me excited because I'm thinking, you know what? I mean, Christ almighty. I'd love to get in the room and argue with this motherfucker because I can tell you right now he's Sarah Palin with just fancier words, and I could easily crush him. I watched him be crushed on BBC, and I was like, wow, this guy just crumbled under pressure, having to talk about his own fucking book. He crumbled. So anyway, look, I do have a little fetish, maybe a little bit obsession about some of the public figures that are out there that I see as my counterpart. Again, I'm not at the same level of Ben Shapiro with reach and audience, but I do see them as spouting nonsense, and I look at what I'm trying to do as a way to counter some of that bullshit. So again, I'm not trying to hero this shit. I'm just telling you how I feel about it and why I think I can do this. So gratitude. Thanks for everybody. Thank you to everybody for continuing to support me, especially after tonight with my stutter and my fucking self punch. I know somebody's going to make a comment about that. It was funny. I would laugh. It was maybe Will Smith was underneath. But anyway, I'll be back Monday, 10:30. I appreciate all the love. You guys are great. The interaction's been great. I've been less than interactive on Facebook. I'm fucking tired of Facebook. I got to admit, I'm fucking tired of it. I'm so tired of it. I was supposed to make the move to TikTok this month, and I just got TikToked off. But Facebook's driving me nuts, probably driving you nuts. But again, you don't have to watch me on Facebook. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Twitch. And so, I'm trying to pull away from Facebook, and that's probably what's going to be the culmination of this year is I'm just going to be completely off it at some point. But anyway, in the meantime, thanks for supporting me. Buy some merch. Sign up for the blog. Keep pushing me. Keep sending me stuff. You guys send me stuff in my inbox. I promise you, if I don't engage with you right away, I do read every single fucking message that comes in my inbox, and I try to at least respond with something or at least put something out there on the air when I get on to make sure that you're acknowledged. So want to say thanks to all my subscribers. You guys rock. You're still with me. You're still my hype people. I love you all, and I want to say that the next year is going to be a tough year, but it's going to be exciting because we're going to put some money in the bank so we can do some cool shit this year. All right, that's it. I'll see you guys Monday. Peace.